Success Insight shares the stories of the people with passion and drive who make things happen in the world. Here's your host, Howard Fox.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Success Insight podcast. Our guest today is Shannon Anderson. Shannon is returning to Success Insight so we can catch up with her and really kind of learn more about all the fun work and really inspirational work that she's doing when it comes to the children's book genre. Shannon is an award-winning author, a coach, and a nationally recognized speaker. She has served as the regional advisor for the Indiana Society of Children's Book Writers and Illustrators and was named one of the top 10 teachers who inspired the Today Show in 2019. Now, Shannon has many books to her credit. Some of those include Monster and Dragon, Write Poems, Coasting Casey, Penelope Perfect, I Am Not a Pirate. Some of her newer books include Too Shy to Say Hi, A D Today, Benjamin Franklin. But one area we really wanted to chat with Shannon about is this idea of mindset. And as you know, on Success Insight, we host the Success Insight episodes Mindset Monday with golf performance coach Andre Martin. And we've also had Ryan Godfredson on the show talking about growth mindset. And for our listeners, I literally saw a post. I don't know if it was on LinkedIn or Facebook, but Shannon was holding a book up that had the word mindset in it. And I thought, man, I need to learn more about this. So without further ado, Shannon, welcome back to the Success Insight podcast.
Well, thank you. Thanks for inviting me back.
First of all, I have to say you have been one busy individual. There's a lot going on in your life since our episode published back in January of last year, 2020. Who knew what that year was going to be in store for us?
Oh, goodness.
So,
yeah.
Yeah. So for our listeners, I wonder if you could just catch us up a little bit about what you're up to. And then I'd love to go into this discussion of the books that you've written about mindset.
Sure. I just recently resigned from my teaching position that I've had for 25 years. I've taught first grade all the way up through college level.
Wow.
And loved to teach. However, as you mentioned, I've had a lot more books come out, and I also love writing and speaking. So I had to make that tough decision on if I wanted to try to do this for, my part two career. And I decided to take that brave leap and go for it. So I am pursuing writing and speaking full time. Hopefully the schools will be opening up again next school year and conferences will be in person again. I've done a lot of speaking, but it's been a lot of one-on-one on Zoom. I've done some author visits, but it's just not the same as getting to be with the kids, in a gym or in classrooms and being at conferences and getting to have those side conversations with teachers and principals. So I'm really looking forward to that returning. But yeah, I have some new books that you mentioned. Too Shy to Say Hi just came out last month. And then the two mindset books came out this fall. So we kind of kicked off the school year with those, which was great because growth mindset is so important for students. I wish I had known more about it when I was a student myself, actually. The whole premise of it, just knowing that you do have the ability to learn anything that you're willing to put in that time and effort, and that we do learn from our mistakes, that those are a good, positive step toward progress. And, I tell my kids in my classroom, I always call them growth spurts. So when you make a mistake, it's a growth spurt because you grow from those mistakes. You learn something. In my book, Mindset Power, I talk about a success cycle where, you try something new and then you might fail. First attempt in learning is what we say FAIL stands for. And then we learn something from that mistake, and then we tweak something, change it up a little bit before we try again. And then we go through the cycle all over again. Try, fail in some way, learn from it, tweak something, and try again. And each time you go through that success cycle, you improve something and you keep getting better. And if I had embraced that as a kid, I think I would have been much more resilient and I would have had more confidence maybe, because sometimes when you have those fails, it doesn't feel like it's progress. It feels like failure. It feels like you're going backward. That's part of why I wrote that book, Penelope Perfect, years ago, because I have had issues with perfectionism, thinking everything has to be a certain way. And when it doesn't go that way, then there's something wrong. Versus growth mindset, is just the opposite of that. It's just showing you that it's just one thing that you need to learn before you can master that thing or get better at it.
Now, when you talk about growth mindset, as part of a school curriculum, is it integrated with the lessons, or is it something you as a teacher have learned to apply? How does that get introduced to the child? Because, sometimes we definitely rely on our parents to provide that encouragement that, failure is okay, as long as you're learning something from it. And we're here just in case, but you just go try it. It's okay. How does that begin to get introduced into the children's learning process or learning pattern?
Well, recently, a lot of the social and emotional topics are starting to become curriculum. However, I think of it more as part of the culture of your classroom and part of the culture of your school. At the very beginning of the school year, make sure that those kids understand that I want them to take creative risks and feel safe doing that they're not going to be made fun of, that they're not going to be judged for making mistakes on their path to success. And so we do all kinds of things with setting goals. I have all kinds of things like this flip chart, for example. So it's a growth mindset flip chart that I have at the front of the classroom. It's much bigger in my room, but it always starts each day on plan A. And I want the kids to see, when things don't go right, things don't go according to plan, that they'll watch me calmly walk over and say, you know what, this did not work. We're going to go to plan B. And they see me calmly handling a disappointment or a failure or something that didn't go according to plan. And they see that the expectation wasn't ever that it would always be plan A, or every single thing on this flip chart would be plan A, but instead it goes plan A, plan B, plan C. And I want kids to understand that there is no expectation. You have unlimited chances to always try again. It's a shame that in our schools, there is such a focus on standardized testing and grades, because I think that hinders growth mindset. But I do feel like if we can let kids know in the beginning of the school year, that your classroom is a culture of learning and growing together, not of judging and all of that. I call our room a family room, not a classroom. And I set it up that way. And I want the kids to see themselves as a team, and we work together and we help each other. We encourage each other. And I want them to recognize that we all learn at different paces. We're all from different places. And that, it doesn't matter if someone else has had more success with something. It's probably because they've had more experience. And kids need to understand that, one child might know how to do a back walkover. They've taken gymnastics lessons, versus someone else might know how to play the violin, or they might know how to play harmonica, or whatever that might be. But it doesn't mean that person is not as smart. It just means they have had more experience with that particular skill. And so when kids start to understand that, and then they start to get that empowerment of, oh, wait, so if I want to learn a skill, I just need that experience. I need to practice that thing. And I need to have those opportunities to try and possibly fail many times before I'm finally going to get it. But that's what causes success, not just because of some innate ability that you just naturally know how to do things. One of the projects I do in my class is I have kids pick someone that they look up to, and it can be a famous example of someone, like Michael Phelps, for example. But what I'm most interested when they're doing this project, I have a few expectations. One is, what was that person known for? Why are they said to be successful? Why did you choose them as your person? But more importantly, I want to know, what obstacles did they face on their way to success, and how did they overcome those? Because when kids can understand that and see that, then they can apply it to their own lives. I always joke with them about people that are professional football players, or they are in the Olympics or whatever. They didn't come out of their mother's womb that way.
No.
They had to eventually learn how to, Michael Phelps didn't come out swimming. He had to learn how to swim. And then he had to learn how to get faster and how to become stronger, all of those things. And we can all do that with whatever it is we would like to learn if we apply those principles. And if we understand that it's going to take a little bit of the mistakes and the setbacks and growth spurts along the way before you become maybe as strong as you would like to be.
Without going into perhaps a patch of thin ice, and because I'm known to do that every once in a while, how do you help the parents understand this path forward for their children? Because I think sometimes I'm not a parent, so I can't speak to that. I can only observe, listen, see my family, etc. How do you help the parents understand this type of mindset and what you're doing with the kids?
Well, for my own classroom, I am very hands-on with the parents. The very beginning of the school year, I have parents come into the room without kids, and I explain to them my philosophy for teaching, my philosophy for learning. I'm very upfront with what I believe in there and share with them what growth mindset is. And throughout the year, I invite them in a lot. So anytime, like for example, that biography project, I invite them in to come and watch their child present their findings. I invite them to, if they can't be there, we will record it for them and send it home. I have an open door policy with all of my parents. So that is one way you can personally do it as a teacher. But another way is there are a lot of schools that are offering parent sessions on things just like that. As a matter of fact, that's one of the things that I offer. I have done for schools. They will have like a family night of some kind. I'll do something special for the kids. And, I'll get out I have neurons and I have brain models and all kinds of things that I'll get out and do with the kids to explain, at a simpler level, some of the brain research on growth mindset and how those, all the neuroplasticity and how we can actually have a different brain now than we had when we woke up this morning. But then they'll have me do a session for the parents and explaining to them the same thing. Like I said, I have kids that are grown now, and I didn't know about growth mindset until about maybe 10 years ago. I started researching. Carol Dweck is, the guru,
Sure.
of course.
Yeah.
And so I started reading her book Mindset, and then also watching some of her YouTube videos and different things that she has. And I was hooked. Like as soon as I understood what it was, I wanted to learn more. And then I had written Y is for Yet, a growth mindset alphabet book for younger kids, because I wanted them to understand. And then that same publisher asked if I would also do a middle grade version. So it's called Mindset Power, a kid's guide to getting better every day.
Okay.
And so that one is a chapter book for older kids.
Okay. Well, tell us, let's kind of circle back to the book. So Y is for Yet, a growth mindset alphabet. What are some examples in the book that you could share with us and our listeners today?
Sure. Well, I guess we can start with yet, because that is a powerful word. When you hear kids say, well, I can't do this, and I make a big deal at the beginning of the year that the word can't is a bad word in my classroom, unless they can tag on the word yet. So they could say, I can't do this math problem, but then they have to add on the word, I can't do this math problem yet. And then we go to work on it and we try different strategies until we can get it. Because they know that they can get it eventually. It's just a matter of they might be frustrated at the time or having a really difficult time because they've had several growth spurts on that particular problem. Other words that I used, and the reason I chose to do it as an alphabet book is because there are just so many terms that, we could talk about that has to do with the concept of growth mindset. I thought, well, if I use an alphabet book, I can have that vehicle of 26 letters.
Right.
So for R, I used resilience. And I will show, I have this, I don't know if you remember, when I was a kid, we had these toys called Weeble Wobbles.
Mm-hmm.
And so they weeble and they wobble, but they don't fall down.
Exactly.
And so I bring in this Weeble Wobble and I talk to them about resilience. And I say, we can knock him down, but look, he got back up again. And that's exactly what we need to do. And I can give them, concrete examples, like when you're learning to ride your bike, you fall off, you have to get back on again. There aren't any kids, I don't know of any babies that when they were in that toddling phase, the first time they fell, when they pulled themselves up on the couch, and they're standing and they let go and they go to take a step and they fall. I don't know any babies that said, I'm just not going to walk. I'm just going to always crawl the rest of my life. And we have evidence of that. There aren't adults crawling around because they gave up on walking when they fell the first time. So, the kids giggle about that, but it's really true. When we're very young, we're probably more resilient, not only because we see what others are doing, but I don't think we worry as much about what other people think at that age. So, when I was teaching third grade, that's kind of that critical age where they start to notice that people are watching and that people are judging things and maybe making fun or whispering. And so it's a critical age that I want to make sure that kids understand that is part of the process and that it's okay. Just like this Weeble Wobble, when you fall down or when you have trouble with that math problem or whatever that might be, you can get back up again and try again. And I keep this in the front of the classroom just as a reminder. Sometimes I need to knock them over to show them again, hey, remember our little Weeble Wobble here. So I have all kinds of, tangible things that I will show them as reminders because it is a concept, it's harder to grasp. But if we can just instill that in those kids, let's see, some of the other things, resilience and yet is a big one, of course, progress. Another thing is optimism. And, a lot of people mistake growth mindset with just being positive. And that's not the case because, I could say, I am awesome at this. I have mastered it. And that's actually fixed mindset because what I'm saying is that I'm not growing anymore. I'm already done. I've made it, even though it sounds like a positive statement. So it's not just, it's definitely good to be positive and optimistic. That's part of growth mindset, but it's not the only thing. So we have to make sure that we are looking on the bright side, that we do have capabilities and abilities and we can improve and grow, but we have to be careful that we don't think that we are at a certain level and can't continue to improve, even if that level is a good level and you're successful at something. We can always get better. I always tell my students that, when we're doing writing time, I tell them, that this weekend I'm going to a writing workshop and they're like, are you teaching it? I'm like, well, not this time. This time I'm actually a student. And they don't understand. Well, what, you write books and things. Why do you need to go to another class? And I'm like, oh, we're never done learning. We can always continue to get better no matter what it is that we do. So kids need to understand that too. And, that's another part of it is just realizing that we can continue to grow no matter what level of success we are at. N is for notice. And so noticing is really important too, because, if we're aware of what's around us and we're aware of how other people are achieving things, then we can learn from that as well. There are just all kinds of things I tried to pack into this book for younger kids to kind of get the basics of growth mindset as they're, starting out in school, which is so important that they know it starting out in school.
As you were walking us through, the whys for yet and continuing this discussion on growth mindset versus closed mindset, I was also thinking, you brought in aspects of personality theory because we're all different. Some of us have, there's a kind of a hardwiring that just to take charge. There's a hardwiring to support each other. There's a hardwiring, I'm not ready yet. There's a hardwiring, hey, look at me. And there's also the aspect of the emotional intelligence, and which I love it because it's moving this learning, which is a necessity for us as adults to be successful. It's taking these concepts and making them very consumable for very young kids at an earlier stage in their lives, so that when they are eventually in their teens and young adults, this positive, I don't, I'm going to say the word conditioning, but I don't mean it in a negative way.
Yeah.
They're basically setting the stage for being really highly functioning, emotionally intelligent, socially intelligent adults.
Yes.
And so I love it that's starting early. Tell us more about Mindset Power, the Kid's Guide to Growing Better Every Day. And then also you wrote the Leader's Guide to this book as well. So how are those two working together?
So Mindset Power is for older kids. So it's kind of third grade through eighth grade is the target range for that one. And it just goes into a little bit more depth. So I do talk about some of the brain research and the neuroplasticity in it. There are some, there's a little quiz about, if you're more growth minded or fixed mindset, and really the reality is, depending on what it is, we're all kind of mixed mindset on some things. There are some things that we don't naturally shine at, that we don't feel as comfortable, and we might not be as strong in our growth mindset with. But we can always, especially if we can recognize that, that can help us to shift better into that growth mindset if we are in a fixed mindset. Just also talking about the brain connection. So all of that, like I said, the neuroplasticity, talking about persevering and our attitudes and how that can have an effect on us. It's all well and good to say, oh, well, you're going to make mistakes and have setbacks, but just keep going anyway. Well, sometimes we have a lot of setbacks and it can get really frustrating and it can be hard to focus or hard to keep going. And so, talking about that success cycle, setting goals that are realistic, but that will also keep you motivated, not something that's going to be too far down the line so that you can feel like you're accomplishing something along the way, and learning how to stick with it and learning how to do some of those goals that aren't necessarily your own. Sometimes our parents and our teachers set goals for us, and it's a lot harder to work on those when it's not something that you're really excited about doing. Like, for example, you get an assignment that you're not real interested in, let's say, then it can be harder to keep a growth mindset about that and to keep going on it when it's not a topic that you might be as interested in. But this one it's broken up into 8 chapters, and I actually do some classes on this online. I've had kids from around the world who will meet up with me on Zoom, and we'll take a chapter a week for 8 weeks and go through the whole book together. And it's so awesome from my perspective to get to see what the kids think of it and how they're processing the information that I wrote about it. It's great. One of the other things that I talk about in here is gradual growth and being patient with the process. So many people want instant gratification these days. And part of that, I think, is due to technology, because we're used to things working very quickly and happening quickly. And, if we have to wait on our food in the microwave for more than 30 seconds, that just seems like forever. And we can get places quickly. We can get something delivered to our door, next day delivery, on Amazon now. So it's hard when it's something that isn't coming right away, that isn't an instant thing. And so teaching kids that important skill of patience in the perseverance, because, it's so easy. I see so many kids that get in a rush with things and they just want to be done, or they just want, something quicker than it's coming. For older kids, I can give the example of they're just ready to be adults and they decide, maybe I just don't want to go to college. I'm just ready to start working. And, not that everyone needs to go to college. I'm not saying that, but if it's just a matter of you're just tired of school, you may want to rethink that and think again about what the results will be for that decision. Instant gratification is something I preach on a lot when I was in my classroom. Is it better to hurry through and have lots of mistakes, or is it better to take your time, and even though it might take longer and might not be as exciting, to really understand it and get it done correctly? So those types of conversations I think are important too.
Very good. And now, how does the Leader's Guide fit into this children's book?
Both of these growth mindset books are through Free Spirit Publishing, and they asked if I would create a leader's guide to go with the Mindset Power book, since it is a chapter book. And that way, if teachers want to guide a whole class, like get a class set of the books and guide them through the chapters, I created a guide. I think it's like 20 to 30 pages, and it just has, discussion questions and activities that go along with the book. And it's just a free download that's on the Free Spirit website. So if you go there and you look up Mindset Power, right next to it, it's going to have, if you want the leader guide, you can just download it for free, whether you purchase the book or not. And it's just something as a supplement to help guide the teacher in case they need more ideas, or, teachers are very busy. I know this. And so the questions are all right there for you. They're completely ready to go. And they're questions that are not just easy answers for the kids. They're not just short or multiple choice or anything like that. They're more insightful and reflective, where the kids have to really digest the information in each chapter and think about, well, what does that mean? And how does that apply to my life?
I'm curious, could this work, could this be helpful for, parents? And what I'm thinking about is you're on a Zoom call. It's international. You've got kids from all over the world on the call. Could you also use this as a vehicle to help the parents with their kids in developing mindset? And I'm thinking, you may have already thought of this. This could be in the works. I know you've got a lot of other things in the works, but I'm thinking like a membership site for parents to come on and learn about mindset that they can
Yeah.
use for their kids.
Yeah, I'm actually in the process of working on some coursework. And I actually had a call today of someone from, I don't have the contract signed yet, so I won't name the company, but they have asked
That's
if I
okay.
will do some courses for them as well as my own courses that I'm working on. And one of the suggestions was, would you also like to create a course that would help the parents in this situation? And I said, yes, I would love to be able to do that. I've done it for some of I speak at a lot of gifted conferences for mostly teachers, but a lot of the gifted conferences kick off with a parent session. And so I have had the opportunity to do some sessions on growth mindset and other social and emotional needs with parents. But you're right. I mean, that is the key. If we can help parents to understand that so that they're then supporting what we're teaching at school and what the kids are learning, then, it doesn't undo all of those things. When they get home and they might have pressure, they might be feeling like if they make a mistake that it's a bad thing. And if we can make sure that that everyone's on the same page and understanding that path using a growth mindset, then that's going to help the kids, of course.
I love when I hear you say how much effort and you put in at the beginning and consistently throughout the term to not only work with the kids on the mindset, but also working with the parents. And because I know being a teacher is a hard job. I mean, it's a career. The pay is not always the greatest. The hours are about, double of what you're putting in the class. So, I mean, that is truly, looking back this past year at COVID, I mean, I completely feel for the teachers who their schedule, their lives have been totally disrupted. And, and the fact that what you're advocating is really a different type of mindset as well. It's a growth mindset, and it's not just teaching for the test. And it's getting the kids involved and in a different way of thinking, getting the parents. And how do your peers, your fellow teachers, what's their reaction been to this body of work?
I feel like once people understand what growth mindset is, that they embrace it also. I mean, it's just that initial making sure they understand what it is. So like I said, a lot of people just think it's about thinking positively and being bright and cheery all the time. And that's not, that's not what growth mindset is. So I think once teachers understand what it is, they embrace it wholly and want that for their students as well. So I haven't been met with any opposition on that as far as any of the social and emotional skills that we're teaching to our kids and that we're learning through professional development as teachers. I think teachers wholeheartedly believe in it.
Sure. For our listeners, as I'm chatting with Shannon, behind her is her office. I mean, some of us have our fake images. Well, mine's a real but fake image, the picture I took. But I have Shannon's background is all over books, and there's one in particular I'm looking at. It's like right over her shoulder, Ben Franklin. And so, tell us more about that. What's Ben Franklin doing behind you?
Well, yeah, it's kind of an interesting one, isn't it? Because a lot of my topics are social and emotional focused. And then here's Ben. And it was just something that came up where someone contacted me through my website and they asked me if I would be willing to contribute to a series that was already in the works. And so that's called a work for hire. All of my other books are traditionally published through various publishers. So that was something new to me that I hadn't done before. And I thought, well, why not try it? Because I also teach full day picture book workshops and full day, next steps to your story, how to do all of the publishing industry. And I thought, I have so many people ask me about work for hire. I guess I should try it myself so I can offer some advice from real experience. So I went ahead and took on the project, and I had to do a lot of research. So it was nice for me to be able to share with my students all the research I was needing to do and to learn about Benjamin Franklin. It was a fun process, though. It's different than in the traditional market where you are coming up with an idea for a book and then you're trying to get a publisher to hopefully take it and want to make it into a book. Well, with this, they present you with the book and they say, are you interested in writing this book for us? So it's completely different. But the other thing that's kind of nice is the turnaround time is a lot quicker. So it was only a matter of a few months that I had to write this whole chapter book versus other times the process can take a really long time because there is so much with the contracting and with the writing and the editing and the illustrations and all of the things that it goes through. The publishing process is often quite slow. So it was a neat opportunity to try it. And I think I would do work for hire again, although I really enjoy being able to be published in the traditional market as well. So yeah, I know it seems kind of like an odd an odd duck over there, with all my other social emotional books, but it was interesting. And it's nice to be able to pull from real life examples of people who use some growth mindset, and Ben Franklin definitely did that. So I get to use them in that way for social emotional learning.
Very good. I have another gotcha kind of question, and I'm curious. I may have asked this on our first episode back in January, but as you look at your career and its trajectory, its evolution, what would you say differently to your early 20-something self who's just coming out of college, embarking on this teaching career and having a lens towards what you're doing today? Because you've had quite the evolution, and there's just a lot of success along the way and really creativity. And I'm sure there's hard knocks as well. But I'm curious what you would tell your 20-something self, or what would your 20-something self say to what you're doing today?
Wow, that's a great question. I really don't have any regrets for teaching as long as I did because I absolutely loved it. And my own daughter is going to be graduating in a few short weeks with an elementary education degree. So I'm actually giving her, all the advice and helping her with her applications. And I'm so excited to help her set up her future classroom. But I think I would still do the same path, but maybe not be as hard on myself or as scared to take some of the steps that I've taken. I mean, for example, the first time I remember speaking at a teaching conference, I was scared to death. And it was something that I didn't sign up to teach. It was something I'm a grant writing queen. Like when I want something for my classroom, I will write grants to make it happen. And I had written this particular grant, and one of the stipulations was I had to present at the state reading conference as part of getting that grant money. And I remember shaking and being so nervous about, why would any teacher want to hear what I have to say about this? And, there's probably not going to be anyone that shows up anyway. And then it was a full room and, they were just like eating up every idea that I gave them. And I was like, wow, why was I so scared? I mean, I'm here to share ideas. I'm giving something to them. So why was I so nervous and scared? And so I guess I would tell myself to just remember that, like the things that I'm wanting to do right now, writing books to help kids and speaking to help teachers and also kids. It's something that goes right along with one of the quotes that I go by is Maya Angelou's, when you get, give, and when you learn, teach. I've always felt that way naturally. And then when I heard that quote, I'm like, that's me. That's what I like to do. When I get something I want to give, that all goes with my D-to-Day book that I have that I think we talked about last time. And, when I learn something, I'm not just learning it for myself. Like as I'm learning something, I'm figuring out how I can translate this into something I can teach to someone else. It's just something I just naturally want to do. I can't explain it. So anytime I learn something new, whether it has to do with something for my classroom or something for other writers, I can't wait to figure out a way to teach them this new cool thing I learned. And so I guess I would just say, to be braver in that and not be so scared about what other people think or, have that imposter syndrome. I know when I first started wanting to write children's books, I was like, well, who am I to think I can write books? I mean, I write grants and articles and, I was in like Highlights magazine, but I certainly didn't think that I could write children's books. I wanted to, but I was, kind of scared to pursue it. So I think I would just tell myself to not be a big chicken and to take those brave steps sooner than I did, because then I could have maybe been a little further along on this part.
That's fantastic. Well, you are most definitely an inspiration. I mean, just kind of seeing your success from socially from afar via LinkedIn and Facebook. And it gives me hope for our children when someone like you is helping kids really become more compassionate, empathetic, being comfortable in their own skin, but also helping their peers along the way. In some ways, all boats rise when the tide comes in, and doing that with our kids. Shannon, if our listeners would like to learn more about you and your work, where are the best places for them to go?
Well, my website's really easy. It's shannonisteaching.com. And that's probably the easiest way. I mean, I'm on Twitter at Shannon Teaches. My website has a contact me page, and it also, so you can email me through that, and you can read more about my books there and see, different offerings I have as far as services for authors and workshops I have for teachers. And then I also have a lot of free resources on there too for teachers and writers alike. And of course, you can sign up for my newsletter on there. I have the first Friday of every month, I send out a newsletter that's kind of a hybrid. Anything that I've gathered that I love for the month on teaching or on writing, both of those things I smush together into this newsletter. So any of you interested in writing or teaching, you can sign up for that. It's free. And I love being able to provide, like cool podcasts that I've discovered, or if I find a new app that is just wonderful, or I've read a book that I love, or I found a new idea for a lesson or a new idea for something in the publishing world, then that's the place that I share those.
Fantastic. Well, we will most definitely provide a link back to your website in our show notes. And Shannon, it's an absolute pleasure to have you back on Success Insight and to kind of get caught up with your continuing journey and your evolution as a retired in-school teacher, at least at this point, but now embarking on really an entrepreneurial path. And within that path, there's an opportunity to really have an impact in so many other lives, whether it's other children, teachers, but also on a global scale, which is definitely what you're doing. So again, it's a pleasure to have you back on Success Insight. So thank you again.
Well, thank you. Thanks so much.
All right, folks, we've just been chatting with Shannon Anderson, award-winning author, coach, national speaker, international coach, I should say, and probably international speaker, because, she's very well known in the space of children's books and writing and illustration, but also this work that she has been pursuing, this evolution on the topic of the growth mindset. And today we just chatted about a number of her books that, built on some of her earlier work, for example, Penelope Perfect, Coaching Casey, etc. But now, Y is for Yet, a growth mindset alphabet, Mindset Power, Kids Guide to Growing Better Every Day, and also the Leader's Guide to Mindset Power. So lots of great information, and it's out there to consume and use. And one thing I love about Shannon, she's very approachable. If you've got questions, there's numerous vehicles to reach out and engage with her, specifically through her website, shannonsteaching.com, and we'll provide the backlinks to it as well. All right, folks, I hope you enjoyed today's podcast. We'd love to hear your comments at successinsightpodcast.com. You can find us on LinkedIn and on Facebook at Success Insight Podcast. And we are also on the major podcasting platforms, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Amazon Music, iHeartRadio, Pandora, and Spotify. And what we love about Spotify, we actually have a children's book authors and illustrators playlist. And this is where we have assembled all of our children's podcasts, and Shannon will be out there as well for her episode. So folks, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, go out there, have a phenomenal day. Take care of yourselves, your family, continue to practice social distancing, do wear your mask. And folks, we'll see you on the next episode of the Success Insight Podcast. Take care now.
Success Insight is a production of Fox Coaching and First Story Strategies. Find us online, successinsightpodcast.com.